Monty, that has so much more depth to the combat than you know. Like, I mean, you might know, but having to consider when to heal and openings to do it is so much more in depth and so much more difficult to pull off than just kind of walking around with a potion. It added so much nuance to a fight to actually surviving the onslaught of attacks the monster was throwing at you. I miss it so much. If I could pick one thing to add back into the games, it would be that. 100%. If healing's too easy, either from your cats or your potions or whatever it is, then taking hits doesn't matter. If taking hits doesn't matter, then like, what are we doing here? Balancing, considering when to heal, getting punished for healing. Older games, you get punished after a heal happens because you do something out of your control. That's not true. You are able to look at the monster and go, okay, I know after this move it is safe for me to heal. That's the same thing in this game. That's how you know when to attack. That principle still exists with attacks. They just removed it from healing, really. I mean, like, it's still there, but it's a lot less strict. Why add in this forced animation? So that you have to consider the time it takes. If you can do it whenever you want, it doesn't really matter when you do it, right? There's no stakes. If it's the animation you particularly don't like, I understand that. The flexing is goofy. I don't particularly dislike it that way. I mean, dude, breaks the mood? This game is all anime and goofy. It's always had that comic flair to it, even in the most serious of entries. If it's like, if you guys are taking issue with the flex, like the animation of it, like that goofy animation is still here. Why not? If you, I've never encountered someone who just dislikes the animation of it. That's so interesting to me. I mean, like, it's fair. You're allowed to have that opinion. I don't even think it's like necessarily a bad opinion to have. Like, it's a frustrating thing. Like, why won't my 100 just drink it? Like, I get it. It doesn't bother me. That's interesting. Ooh, wow, that's the fastest I've ever had him charge. Like, I understand, I think the whole, like, I don't like when the character does something outside of my control, that part's valid. You're not telling them to flex. I mean, like, it's just part of the healing animation. I think saying that it takes you out of the mood when you're, like, fighting a giant dragon with your cats, your talking cats, maybe doesn't hold a whole lot of water to me. Like, this game has just always had some goof to it. Ow. But like, there is immersion to be had in this game. I understand that. Like, I mean, like, my immersion stops with like giant damage numbers flying off the screen. Hey, a plate. Thank you, Zinogre. I don't know. At the same time, like, we're also talking about the game that's got like crazy like Fortnite-esque dances in it now too. So it's like, I don't know. It's not like when they took out the flex, the game suddenly became like a bastion of serious dark tonality. No prance though? Yeah, worst game. 0 out of 10. That's actually my biggest complaint, Marks. My biggest complaint is that there's no prance. I would like them to add the prance. I would like this game to be more like any other entry that has the prance. There you go. There's your delayed answer to that question from earlier. I think there's a lot of ways to balance healing while moving. It's just currently not being balanced that way. If anything, they've made it more free in this game than it was even in World. You can make it take less time if you're standing still. You can make it so that the healing is more when you're standing still. You can make it so that it takes longer if you're walking or running, and takes less time when you're standing still. Like, there's so many ways to make like good timing prioritize, even with the option to cancel it out. But they're not doing that. They're saying, hey, why don't you just get more healing up front instead? I should probably put on some coatings, huh? Let's eat a ration first. I know they won't, Moogles. I know they won't at this point. It's hard for them to go back. I mean, they went backwards on, they went like they returned to how old things were on some things in this game, so it's not like they won't do it with everything, but I think you're correct in that they will not. Yes, there are Verge. It's pretty hard to follow, isn't it? They chose a middle ground where you heal into the middle of the animation. In this game, you heal immediately. People are already saying this game is too hard. This game is not too hard. I mean, like, this game can be difficult when you're still learning it, but this game makes it pretty easy to bully it into submission once you're acclimated to the mechanics. Oh, hey, if you wanted an example of a pretty bad hitbox, there you go. I wouldn't, Lokomo. I wouldn't say that when low-rank Tobi Kadachi in this game has master rank moves from Iceborne. I don't know, it's hard to debate. I think debating what Monster Hunter is easiest is futile, just like debating what Monster Hunter is most difficult is futile. The different games have different types of difficulty. So there's going to be some games that have easier aspects in one way or another, just like there's going to be some games that have more difficult aspects in one way or another. There's really not a good way of debating, like, well, this is by far the easiest. I'm like kind of hesitant to really like spit too many takes into this particular conversation about easy and hard, because there are different types of difficulty, and it really is subjective in terms of like what game felt the most difficult to you at what point in time, because you were new to the series or old to the series or whatever it was. It's a pretty difficult conversation to have, so I'm not really going to throw too much into the ring here. I'll say this, when Iceborne came out, the day it came out, I was worried up until the moment it released that they weren't going to fix stagger thresholds and monster HP from base world. One of my biggest problems with base world was that the majority of monsters through the entirety of the game, through low rank and high rank, staggered every like with any sort of decent damage, not even like end game like Draken, just like any sort of decent damage, staggered every like 30 seconds to a minute, almost no matter what you were doing. And the monsters died pretty quickly. So the first thing that I was most worried about when Iceborne came out was like, are monsters still going to feel like that? And they didn't. And I was like, dang, they fixed my #1 issue with base world. They made monsters not quite so pushover in that way. So to me, that game felt pretty easy. In terms of like, hey, these monsters fall over all the time and let you just murder them. That was my personal experience, but other people might not have felt the same. I don't know. Like I said, it's all subjective. So to me, this game feels like they took some of the things that they pioneered in World and they iterated on them. We're like, hey, the monsters might have less HP, or the monsters might not hit as quickly, but they're challenging player movesets more than they were in base World. Like when you compare base low-rank Tobikadachi in World to base low-rank Tobikadachi in this game, it's a lot faster and it has a lot more moves. We're gonna cap this in. I mean, that's not to say every fight was like that, Dragon on Fire. Like, ATs were tough, certain Elder Dragons were tough, but if, like, you're getting to the end of the game, you're getting to the very final fights, and then you're saying, okay, these ones aren't pushovers, like, that's rough. It shouldn't be like the final monsters in the game or when you start having a challenge. Like, there should be a challenge throughout. I'm not ignoring wire bugs, Melancholy Monty, but, I mean, wire bugs are strong. The moves you have from them are strong. I'm not saying that you don't have tools in this game to fight back with the monster's more complex movesets, but I think if you're going to give the player strong tools like that, buffing the monsters so that the monsters are faster and have more moves and are more interesting is way better than just giving the player strong damage and making the monsters like falling over and pushovers. Oh, you're saying he had an interview that Dev said you could ignore Wirebug? Yeah, you can't really ignore Wirebug. Sorry, I mistook what you were saying.